Good evening. The state of the union is precarious, I think. Um, yeah, this is going to be fascinating. And as soon as the nerds join me, I'm going to ask everybody what they're hoping for and what they're anticipating. So, in other words, what in a perfect world would you like to hear President Biden say? And in the same kind of context, hey, Jen, I'm just starting off. I'm going to ask everybody, since we have some time, what in a perfect world they would want President Biden to say, and what in the along the same lines he might possibly say that would still be good. So, for example, I want him to say defund the police. This is not going to happen. However, I hope, and this is within the realm of possibility, or it certainly should be, I want him to come out very strong. Hey, Dean, how are you?
Fine.
I want him to come out very strongly for police reform, like meaningful, deep, serious police reform. You know, I'm playing a little pregame. Um, so it
You pregame? Does that involve drinking? Is that what you're saying?
well, that's always optional here when the show is after 5, wherever you are. So basically, it's sort of what's your fantasy of what Biden would say, and what is within the realm of possibility that he should say. So, for example, when you were coming in, I was saying I want him to say defund the police. He won't, but at the very least, can he come out for very meaningful, serious police reform? So, what would be one or two if you're in a perfect world? He'd say this, but hopefully, he'll at least say that. Um,
I,
whatever.
I would like him to say, tonight we arrested Donald Trump and bring him in handcuffs for the whole crowd. Everyone cheers.
Yeah.
And he's like, here he is, and we're going to return him to his cell while he'll be remaining to trial. That's what I'd like.
Yeah.
Or calling for accountability for Donald Trump, but he won't do that. What what he will do is he'll tout the accomplishments because we know from the stuff released from the White House, most jobs created in the first 2 years. That's remarkable. Unemployment 3.4%, the lowest since 1969.
Mhm.
Black and Latino unemployment almost record lows. It's touching on it. That's really important. And his accomplishments, because the Washington Post poll on Sunday is kind of startling. Only about 36% of Americans think President Biden's accomplished a lot or even a middle amount of stuff, while about almost 80% of Democrats think he has. So we're paying attention. Other people haven't. Only about
Oh,
34% of Americans think he's created jobs, which is undeniable, a record number of jobs. So look, I think what he's going to do is tout that. He'll definitely talk about police reform. There's no doubt. I had Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman on last night, and she designed this pin that says 1870. And a lot of Democrats are going to wear that pin. If people see it tonight, it says 1870. That's the first year that a free black man was killed by the police, happened in Philadelphia. I had Congresswoman Ilhan Omar on my show today who talked about she's bringing up Amir Locke's father. Amir Locke was killed last year by the Minneapolis police. And they both said they expect to hear President Biden, and not in a demanding way. They're like, he's going to speak about criminal justice reform. They know he is.
okay.
So the question is, does it go anywhere?
Yeah.
The problem is with this Republican Party, polling shows, and I really try to urge people, look at the polling about the base. You'll see why the leaders are saying it. The base doesn't believe there's a thing called systemic racism, so the leaders don't say that. And the base of the GOP thinks there's as much, if not more, discrimination against white people than there is against people of color. So they're not going to enact criminal justice reform because they think as white people they're suffering the most. So nothing's going to pass right now, but it's important for President Biden to talk about that. Holding Trump accountable is important. Obviously, he'll talk about China. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the moron walking around that you see in the halls with a white balloon.
She's just you know what? I don't even want to waste my
I
time
don't
on
think Kevin
that
McCarthy's going to
despicable person.
let her into it. It's really, I
Eh,
think Biden should shoot it down because it looks like a redneck spy balloon. I think could be leading to trouble. So what he's going to say the normal things. I will share what I heard from listeners tonight because we opened the phone lines in the first hour just on this, and so many, all Democrats calling and saying the poll, the ABC poll, which shows only 31% of Democrats want Biden, a lot of people called up and said, look, I'm in the camp that would like someone else, but I'm still 100% going to support Joe Biden. That's what the mainstream media is missing in that.
Yeah.
They want to see more fight. They want to see more fire. And a lot of people brought up not his age as much as he operates from an old time of politics where you can get things done with the Republicans. So I hope he's going to talk about, like he did in September, the MAGA GOP is a threat to our democracy.
Yeah.
And that will make Democrats a little bit more emboldened. So that's my
Yeah. And listen, he absolutely needs to tout the positives, the accomplishments, because clearly the media aren't doing it properly. And as you point out, Dee, the American electorate is woefully under or uninformed about the good things that are going on in the economy. So, Jen, give me one of your fantasy of what he's going to come out saying, swinging, and the sort of more realistic version of what might happen and should happen.
Yeah. So mine is, I always like things in threes. So one of the things we've been talking about for months is freedom. So the first is I want the emphasis to be on freedom, that we deserve freedom, that America's built on freedom.
Mhm.
Secondly, shared prosperity, and third, that Joe's the guy who can deliver those things.
Yeah.
And so but I would say these are not available to us because the Republicans want to take away our freedom. And that includes because they're ignoring systemic racism, police violence, because they want to shut down freedom at schools, freedom to be who you want to be. In terms of the shared prosperity, Joe's the guy who can deliver this. He's already started to do the 15% tax on corporations. Prosperity means prosperity for all. We're going to actually have to have the rich pay their fair share, right? All the stuff around, what that looks like. And then finally, that he's the guy who can do it because he is a leader, but he's a team player. It's not just him. Joe is someone who can bring the party together, and he can stand up to the Republicans like he did when he got the Inflation Reduction Act. So to me, those are the things to lead with. And what we're going to get here is, because the press is always saying, you didn't tell us what you did. I'm afraid we're going to get too many statistics like you typically get at a State of the Union, that I'm going to be like, I'm actually not even at my desk. I'm downstairs ready to recline because I'm afraid I'm just going to fall asleep leaning over in my chair. So I think that, I don't usually make it through a State of the Union. I think in my life, I have always fallen asleep. Haven't you all at some point?
I have to confess, I don't typically watch them. And to the viewers, I'll say, for the reason Jen just stated, but also I don't like the ovations, and tonight in particular, I really, really, really don't want to see Kevin McCarthy sitting where Nancy Pelosi should be sitting. But that's why we're going to provide live commentary. We're going to keep it interesting. We're going to keep people on their toes, hopefully entertained.
Oh yeah, I won't sleep. I promise, man.
Yeah. No, I mean that could be entertaining.
I got the Coke Zero,
but there you go. And I just want to expand a little bit on points both of you made, and maybe add a couple. Again, tout the accomplishments, absolutely, but I mean, I sort of one of my fantasies is that he comes out and says the state of the. I started the show by saying the State of the Union is precarious. I want him to come out and say the State of the Union is not good, because, of course, he's not going. I said it was a fantasy, but I don't mean the state of the country in terms of the economy and other things, but the state of our union. We are not united because, and then I would like for him to say, because of people like Ron DeSantis, who is trying to turn Florida into a closed fascist state. And if he's not going to say that, which of course he won't, at least talk about, and I think we talked about this the other day on the show, at least say how dangerous it is to ban books, how dangerous it is to erase the contributions of Black Americans and do away with African American studies, how dangerous things like Don't Say Gay are, how dangerous it is to treat educators as if they're not professionals, right? Just the whole the way DeSantis and the right is going to use education in the next election. And I also want him to talk about, hi guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Good to see you.
You too.
We're playing a little game here, which is, what's your fantasy of what President Biden's going to say, and what do you think is reasonably likely that he would say? So for one of my fantasies is that he's going to call to expand the Supreme Court. He's not going to, but at least talk about the dangerous extremism of the court, especially regarding gun safety and, most egregiously when it comes to the right to choose, which is no longer a right for more than half of the states in this country. So what's your fantasy, and what is a version of that Biden might say that will at least help the American people feel like he's really fighting for us? Let's start with you, Ali.
Oh gosh. My fantasy. Yeah,
Dean's was, he said that he's going to arrest Donald tonight or something.
That's my dream.
that was in my mind.
Like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction. Look what we got. Back in the box. That's it.
Yeah. I think that's everyone's fantasy, is that he announces indictments tonight. That would be my dream. But I think you hit the nail on the head, the Supreme Court too. That's something that I think a lot of Democrats want to see.
Yep.
Or even making DC a state.
Yes.
That's another one. But I don't know if we'll ever see it. So that would be mine.
You know what? Sometimes it just needs to be said. Like, right, Adam? Like, can Biden make DC a state? No. At least last I checked, I don't believe he can. But sometimes we just want to hear
that's a priority.
That it's on the radar. Police reform, gun safety, that at least it's on their minds. So, Adam, what's something you would like to see that probably won't happen? But
that's all I would come up with. I think in an ideal world, I'd love to see him come out and say that it is true that he ordered the balloon to be shot down, but his exact words were, "I ordered that motherfucker to be shot down." And I think that'd be a great campaign ad.
Is that true?
No, but I
ordered
it to be shot down. But
we want it to be true.
Actually, my exact words were, "I ordered that motherfucker to be shot down." Right. But we're talking about dreams. I think
okay,
just like the real Biden that we all know. Sort of we used to have these stickers back in 2000 in the 2000 Senate race for Hillary. Don't Hillary Hillary, and let Hillary be Hillary. I think sort of Dark Brandon at his best. He's going to have Kevin McCarthy standing behind him, who is as gutless as anyone we've ever seen. And I think if he can just get up there and hammer home the historic things that they've accomplished in 2 years. I mean, we know from back in the day, we used to hear, Carville, Begala, jobs, jobs, jobs. But I mean, the job numbers are incredible. And I think speaking to that and speaking to what he's done in such a short period of time after, this helpless, reckless place that we were left from the last president, I think is really what he needs to hammer home.
Yeah, I totally agree. Hi, Norm. Hi, Cliff.
Hi. Hey, how are you?
Good. Listen, what we're doing we still got a bit of time. We're saying, like, what is our fantasy thing that Biden should do tonight but won't? For example, expand the court or defund the police or whatever. And a realistic version of something he might say, which is at least to call out the dangerousness of the extremism on the court or the need for police reform. So, Cliff, what's your fantasy versus a realistic version that Biden might actually say?
Well, I mean, he wouldn't want to call him an ultra MAGA extremist, because I hear that gets Kevin McCarthy very upset. So he wouldn't want to say that about them.
Yeah.
Civility is
more than 10 times anyhow.
Exactly. Fantasy would be, honestly, to get right in their faces and point out how their extremism in wanting to destroy our economy with what they're doing, playing with the debt ceiling, the fact that they are a party that's still committed to an act of sedition, that there are members seated there right now who should be on trial, frankly. He shouldn't say that, obviously, but members seated there right now who are involved in an attempted coup against the United States. That'd be my fantasy.
Yeah.
What do I realistically think he'll say? He won't say that. I do think he has gotten so much better. We remember before the midterm talking about semi-fascism, and even saying that word, the F word, was a big deal. It really was. And I think he will point out how extreme they are. I think he will point out that they pose a danger to democracy. He won't use those words, but I think he'll use less harsh words than that. What I hope he'll do, and I think they really seem to be doing more of, I've talked to a few friends there, is bragging, about their accomplishments instead of sort of being, that's what the State of the Union is about, but they've always been sort of, it's a democratic thing. We figure people just know. 500,000 jobs created in January, lowest unemployment since 1969.
Dean already pointed those stats out, right?
Oh, sorry, and you're late.
No, it's okay. It's just, the problem that Jen pointed out is that when they do start bragging, which they absolutely should, it gets, they get into the weeds and it gets really boring. And, that's not, that is not what this should be about. But yeah, absolutely. Bragging rights, especially with the job creation numbers, are absolutely insane. And Norm, what Cliff just reminded me, and this is just so horrifying. I completely forgot about the debt ceiling. And I completely forgot about the January 6th insurrection. It's like there's so much that still hasn't been addressed. And having said that, what is your fantasy of something that will be highlighted, and then a sort of more realistic version of what might be said tonight?
Well, so first on the debt ceiling, my fantasy is that he would say, to all of you Republicans, you raised the debt ceiling 3 times without any conditions when Donald Trump was president. And during that time, the debt over more than 200 years went up by over 25%. And now all of a sudden, you've decided to be concerned about it. I'd like to have him call him out on that. I would also like to have him get to the balloon issue. My friend Bill Press calls it balloonacy, which is a wonderful term.
And Norm, our friend David Rothkopf calls them ballooniacs.
Yeah,
or balloonatics or something like that. It's okay.
But in my fantasy, he calls out the Republicans who are in the Gang of 8, which is the leaders and the heads of the Intelligence Committee, who were briefed multiple times on the 3 balloons, at least, that crossed the country without any action during the Trump administration, and the members of the Intelligence Committee who've been briefed repeatedly, including being briefed on why they didn't shoot the balloon down over the United States, and calls them out for not just hypocrisy, but for trying to score cheap political points at the expense of national security.
Yeah,
he won't do either of those things, but I think he has to address the debt ceiling and the history of this.
Yeah,
point out that just flirting with it in 2011 cost taxpayers $19 billion because our credit rating was downgraded just because we came close, and noting that the cost would be far more severe this time around. Yeah. And, talk about why they dealt with the balloon the way they did. But then there's another element in my fantasy, which is he calls out the Putin lovers who are trying to cut funding for Ukraine, and basically just, rips them new ones over and over for violating, put it this way, violating Ronald Reagan's approach to freedom in the world. Give it to him that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Kurt, we have a little pregame, which is, what's your fantasy of what President Biden is going to say, and what is a realistic a more realistic version of something he might say, but that's necessary for him to say. So, what's kind of astonishing is that, yeah, there's been a little bit of overlap, but everybody's come up with different and equally valid and kind of extraordinarily important things. Like, there's so much going on. And, with the debt ceiling, for example, like, can somebody please explain to the American people what it would actually look like if America defaults on its debt, because it's so unimaginable. But anyway, let's leave that aside for a second. So what's your fantasy of something that Dark Brandon is going to come out and say with his sunglasses on?
I love that, Dark Brandon with the sunglasses on. I think about this speech, knowing that tomorrow the Republicans in the House are going to have their first Hunter Biden committee hearing. And what I would like, and I think a lot of the cadence you're going to see from the president tonight is about contrasting with the American people. This is what an adult in the room looks like. And then tomorrow's shit show is what the other side looks like. And that's really the choice that the American people have to decide between going forward. I think that with them, with the president out here tonight, deliberately, I think, striking bipartisan or nonpartisan notes, things that should be nonpartisan, frankly. I think that will make the Republicans tomorrow, when they're making baseless accusations, chasing conspiracy theory threads, using the oversight committee as their own Gestapo. I think that contrast between tonight and tomorrow is a lot of the framing, the thought behind the framing of what we're going to see happen here in a few minutes.
Yeah, and also apparently, I mean, I wish I could say I have a hard time believing it's true, but it seems perfectly realistic that we'll get some of that contrast tonight if Marjorie Taylor Greene brings a white balloon as her date, which apparently she's. I mean,
she's single now, so
Hey, listen, whatever you're, just don't go to Florida, because I'm sure DeSantis would have a problem with that. But
don't yuck her yum, Mary.
Well, I don't even know what that means, and I don't want to. Hi, Brian. And wait, Dean, I just want to check it. You need to leave at 9, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll just quietly disappear.
No. So I want Brian to do our pregame, and then Dean, I want you to get the last word before we go live to the State of the Union. Brian, I just want your fantasy of what Dark Brandon is going to say tonight, but almost certainly won't, and something that he really should say and can. Just hopefully he will.
Well, I think what he'll say, I've read the excerpts and have spoken with members of his staff. I think he's going to try and keep this upbeat and talk about his accomplishments. I don't think there's been a lot of speculation that he should go after the GOP, but that's not the way he operates. I think he's going to operate the way he always does, and that's trying to build a coalition of support even across the aisle with Republicans. I would like to see him step up a little bit and challenge the GOP to be less fewer insurrectionists in the party. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think that he will address some of the issues that people have asked about in the last few days, including the balloon but it's not going to be a big thing. He's going to spend his time talking about his accomplishments and where he sees this going. It'll be up to the GOP. I've also seen excerpts from the wonderful Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and it's going to be a word salad of baloney, spiced with.
I'm shocked.
And may I use the term bullshit? That's what we're going to hear from her, and so that's where we're at. But I think Biden will
runs in the family.
Yeah, I think Biden
the proverbial apple and all.
Yes, and he will. I think Biden will deliver the speech that we think he'll deliver, and I think it'll be a solid one.
All right, solid is not enough, but okay. Dean, am I just a hopeless idealist? Yes, I am.
In what way? In what way? In how are you? Look, I don't know. To me, my other fantasy, I thought about it now, was that he comes out and announces, we just dropped Marjorie Taylor Greene on Russia, on their forces. Just that would be kind of fun. I mean, you must feel bad for the Russians at that point. But by the way, if you guys don't know, Marjorie Taylor Greene is literally walking around the halls of Congress with the big white balloon, and she's becoming a human meme, which is just great and mocking the whole thing. But look, Joe Biden, this speech is not going to move that many people because I think the chorus is going to watch it, and they are inherently not the most exciting, except for the first time a president delivers it. It's between now and he's got to get Democrats engaged and animated. And that's what polling shows. And Democrats are going to come back. I just don't. And the one thing I took from listeners to my show tonight over and over is if Trump is a nominee, Biden's the perfect guy. If DeSantis is a nominee, Biden's not the right person. That's what I heard over and over and over again. And because of the age gap, he's literally almost double the age. Right now, DeSantis is 44. Biden's 80. DeSantis is the scariest guy out there.
This is okay. My head is already exploding. Better a young fascist than an older pro-democracy, decent human being. I mean, geez, this is like where we are. Like seriously,
we could lose to Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis on paper is remarkably impressive. Serving the Navy as an officer, federal prosecutor, Harvard, Yale, all that stuff.
Yeah, but he's educated. That's not good.
Tonight he just had a meeting talking about proposing ways to change defamation laws to make it easier to sue media outlets to silence them. He's doing what he does over Trump. Trump would tweet about things he didn't like. DeSantis uses state action. Far more dangerous. A whole different level. It is really authoritarian. He hasn't embraced violence yet, which you really need if you want to get into technically fascism.
Yeah,
he's an authoritarian leader. He is the most dangerous person I've seen. So much more dangerous than Donald Trump.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. And maybe the media should talk about him in such terms.
Well, we're not doing our job. Don't expect us to do our job.
Well, you guys never do. So that's old hat by now. Norm, what else are you looking for? I mean, these are so scripted. I don't typically watch them, but because it's the first one and it's going to be a little bit different from the last one, which I did not watch. You'll be shocked to know. With SCOTUS in the House, having rendered these just disastrous anti-American, anti-democratic decisions over the last year, Kevin McCarthy in place of Nancy Pelosi, which is just, and Marjorie Taylor Greene with her balloon date. I mean, what are you expecting in terms of the way Biden, if he does it all, kinds of addresses those shifts?
So another fantasy is that he'll address the Republicans in the crowd and say, okay, I'd like a show of hands. How many of you are packing heat tonight?
Oh, man. Oh, my God.
But
or how many of you were smoking?
Yeah.
Because that's
keep your guns down, start firing in the air, though. So it's
I'd love to have him call out the court. I do think he is obviously going to address Dobbs, and I would bet he'll spend a little time on the whole notion of freedom of reproductive rights. My guess is that what he's going to do is, in general, besides crowing about these great accomplishments, is trying to be conciliatory. And I know, I've heard from a number of sources that he's going to spend a little time on mental health issues. Some of it, I'm sure, is in response to the pandemic, the suicide threat, and all of that. But if I had to guess, my guess is he's going to pick 4 or 5 issues like that and say, there's no reason, even if we can't agree on big things like climate change, that we can't make great progress for the American people working together. The other thing I'm going to be looking for, Mary, is just to make sure that at the end of it, everybody is basically saying, for a guy who's over 80, he did pretty well. He's alert, he's articulate, he's energetic. I don't want the opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since there was an op-ed in the New York Times today saying all about how Biden shouldn't run again. Like, guys, this is not the time.
Yeah. Shut the fuck up.
Thank you, Norm. Shut the fuck up. Absolutely. I mean, Jen, it is just amazing. And this was from this was Michelle Goldberg. This wasn't.
Oh, Michelle wrote that?
Yeah.
Why?
And I'm like, that's what you think is the most important. Yeah.
Incumbency is so powerful. You don't just give up on incumbency.
Ashanda. I'm going to write a response called Ashanda.
Yeah, because the other thing, and it was like he has a stutter, but some of his slip ups can't be attributed to that. Who are you? Are you a neurologist? Like, what is going on here? Like, why don't we talk about the fact that the Republicans are a bunch of fascists? And there's no. Some of them are. There's none of that anymore. And Norm used the word conciliatory, Jen, and that makes my head explode too, because I'm shocked that my head is still intact, quite honestly, because 100 and I always get this number wrong. 147 of the Republicans sitting in that chamber tonight are insurrectionists. Why are we being conciliatory towards any and the other ones are cool with it?
Yeah.
I guess the question is, who's the audience?
I don't know.
The answer to that question is always more than one audience, right? It's kind of like, and so that's maybe why these things often look like the kitchen sink. Like there's the soundbite that will be on the morning shows and the night shows, and then there's talking to the base because we're the ones who listen. And then there's just different notes to play. And, that I think that's a really, really difficult thing. And so if you can like make one person happy without making us go like, oh, gross, why did you say that? Then I think it works, right? But the problem is, is it starts to be discordant if you're trying to do too many things at once. So to me, the word, so I think that's hard. I think that's very difficult to accomplish. But I did not see Michelle Goldberg's piece. And, I know it's her job to state what her opinion is. And she's not, she's a journalist. She's not, supporting our party. But I also, it's just frustrating to me. And I am though supporting. I'm not a journalist. I'm an ordinary person with opinions, and so my opinion is shut the fuck up. But she, of course, she can say what she's going to say.
I just think that she's clearly on the left. That's not whatever that means. When she's an opinion writer, she's not a straight up reporter. And I just think there are other more pressing issues going on right now. And I just hope this is not about the imaginary middle. I hope the audience for this isn't the imaginary middle. And I apologize. I can't remember who brought it up, but I also hope that in the back of his head, President Biden is remembering that tomorrow, this fascistic new there we go. This fascistic new what's it called?
Oh, can we say that I like what she's wearing?
You can
purple.
If you must,
I must, because I do, and I don't want to have a filter about nice things.
Jim Jordan's new committee that is all about deflecting is going to be going after Hunter Biden, for God's sakes. So pull no punches, President Biden / Dark Brandon. Pull no punches. It looks like it's going to take them a while to get going. So like, if guys, for future reference, I know you're totally listening to this. If you mean 920, just say 920. I don't think it's too much.
Well, he looks alert, doesn't he?
That is not a strong opening. He looks alert.
No, but he is.
Come on.
as we age, our minds can be
look
working perfectly
president.
well, but we may not appear that way. And he looks great. He looks healthy.
Yes, he does.
Unlike your uncle, who always looked like a moron, and
that would be an ad hominem attack, and we don't.
I'm a little nervous
we
because
don't
one
have
of the people standing up there is George Santos at the end of the row, like Elliot Engel always used to. So
Oh my God.
hopefully he passes him quickly.
Seriously. I hope he just like
Oh
ignores
God, yeah.
him.
Yeah.
But
I was just hoping he was wearing a dress.
that at least would be honest.
Yeah.
Like that's literally the most honest thing he could do at this point.
If he showed up
looking
with his
good.
roommate's stuff to pawn, that would be even more honest.
There's not yet been a balloon sighting, so that's good.
What I'm very excited for tonight, because we've all seen what's been put up, obviously, the factual backgrounds and previews of this speech. I'm very happy with, hopefully, what he's going to talk about in terms of tax policy. It's pretty cool. Oh, sorry. I'll be wide awake for that part. I'm like,
Well, that leaves one of us, which is great because we all have our different interests.
right.
And-
We're
and
all
that's-
listening for different things, right?
That's phenomenal. So I mean, Brian has been updating us. He has the speech in front of him, so he's been updating us on some of the content. And so far, it looks good. It looks actually pretty comprehensive. But with a lot of this, it also does depend on the attitude with which you said. And Adam, this has nothing to do with the speech tonight, but fentanyl and drugs. Yes, I hope they point out that, like, you know how Republicans tweet, can you believe it? Like 100 billion pounds of fentanyl were seized at the border. Like, you guys, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
You know? Oh my God. But anyway, Adam, this has nothing to do with the speech tonight. Oh, look, Speaker of the House forever, Nancy Pelosi. If Joe Biden decides to run for re-election, that is the end of the conversation as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like there's a new article every day where, a bunch of unnamed consultants are saying one thing or another, but I think that you just got to own it and move forward. And I think what Gavin Newsom did is basically where everybody else will be at.
I don't. Can you fill me in? Because I've been out of.
Gavin, we're talking about the re-election. I mean, Gavin Newsom came out and said, despite all the rumors, President Biden had his full support.
Fabulous.
Yeah,
And that is as it should be. The fact that this man has to shake Kevin McCarthy's hand.
Well, Gavin Newsom has a future then, right?
Yeah.
Later.
Yeah, and you want to know the crazy thing is? A lot of people that are still in office right now always said he had absolutely no future because he was one of the first electeds in the country on the Democratic side to come out and support gay marriage, like the first.
Right. Well, and also he was in a relationship with Kimberly Guilfoyle, but that's a subject for another.
That was a lot worse than.
Yeah, but he broke up with her. So.
All right, here we go.
Allie, Mary, the speech is in your inbox.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, Adam. Here we go.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor to present to you the President of the United States.
Strong applause.
I love how Joe Biden loves him. It's very moving.
Mr. Speaker.
Doug.
You can smile. It's okay. Thank you.
Good to see Vice President Harris up there. She's been run through the
Is this
ringer.
different camera action than we usually see?
Yes.
It's a lot.
Yeah, have they not shackled C-SPAN yet?
Mr. Speaker, Madam Vice President, our First Lady and Second Gentleman, good to see you guys up there. Members of Congress.
I love that we have a second gentleman, I have to say. Everybody else does too, apparently.
By the way, Chief Justice, I may need a court order. She gets to go to the game tomorrow, next week. I have to stay home. Got to work something out here. Members of the cabinet, leaders of our military, Chief Justice, Associate Justice, and retired Justice of the Supreme Court, and to you, my fellow Americans. You know, I start tonight by congratulating the 118th Congress and the new Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy.
"16 votes, Kevin."
I threw up a little in my mouth.
I know. I thought he was going to say Marjorie Taylor Greene, but he was being polite, I
There's the
guess.
leash.
Speaker, I don't want to ruin your reputation, but I look forward to working with you.
Ugh.
Oh, that was
I
funny.
want to congratulate the new leader of the House Democrats, the first African-American minority leader in history, Hakeem Jeffries.
Oh, look, Kevin being all polite.
Oh, he looks really cute. I love that tie.
Oh, he's sharp.
Oof.
He won in spite of the fact I campaigned for him. Congratulations, the longest serving
Okay,
leader
all
in the
these are
history of the
funny.
United
Those are funny.
States Senate, Mitch McConnell. Where are you, Mitch?
Yeah.
Did
This
he
is
say,
how
"Where
it's
are you, bitch"?
He
Did I
can't
get
even
that wrong?
stand.
This is how it should be done. Introducing everyone and
Yeah, I know, but
Congratulations to Chuck Schumer, another.
Yeah, you're right. But
I know,
another
but
term
is
as-
it
as
really?
Senate minority
yes,
leader?
bring back some.
You know,
love
I
it.
think
Normal.
you.
I love it.
Only this time you have a slightly bigger majority, Mr. Leader. You're the majority leader. About that much bigger? Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I'll tell
one.
you what.
One.
I want to give special recognition to someone who I think is going to be considered the greatest speaker in the history of the House of Representatives,
Oh,
Nancy
yes.
Pelosi.
Yeah,
I was waiting for that. Awesome.
that standing ovation should last for an hour.
Oh my God. Amazing.
Republicans
Rushmore.
not standing.
Even the Republican, right?
Good.
A lot of them
The
sitting.
Good.
story of America is a story of progress and resilience, of always moving forward, of never, ever giving up. It's a story unique among all nations. We're the only country that has emerged from every crisis we've ever entered stronger than we got into it. Look, folks, that's what we're doing again. 2 years ago, the economy was reeling. I stand here tonight after we've created, with the help of many people in this room, 12 million new jobs, more jobs created in 2 years than any president's created in 4 years, because of you all, because of the American people. 2 years ago, COVID had shut down, our businesses were closed, our schools were robbed of so much. And today, COVID no longer controls our lives. And 2 years ago, democracy faced its greatest threats in the Civil War. And today, though bruised, our democracy remains unbowed and unbroken.
Kevin McCarthy can't even applaud for that.
I seriously, like,
Well, don't expect much out of him. He's barely sentient.
We're
Yeah,
writing the next chapter in the great American story, a story of progress and resilience. When world leaders ask me to define America, and they do, believe it or not, I say I can define it in one word, and I mean this: possibilities. We don't think anything is beyond our capacity. Everything is a possibility.
including
We're
fascism.
often told that Democrats and Republicans can't work together. But over the past 2 years, we've proved the cynics and naysayers wrong. Yes, we disagreed plenty. And yes, there were times when Democrats went alone. But time and again, Democrats and Republicans came together to defend a stronger and safer Europe. It came together to pass once in a generation infrastructure law, building bridges connecting our nation and our people. We came together to pass the most significant law ever, helping victims exposed to toxic burn pits. And in fact,
Kevin McCarthy can't even applaud for helping victims of toxic burn pits.
It is just the pettiness. Even Boebert and Gates are.
Yeah.
in fact,
You see,
I
McCarthy
signed
thinks
over
that's his role to
300
play. He doesn't even
bipartisan pieces of
understand
legislation
he
since
is.
To be a dick.
from reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act,
He's the
Electoral Count
Wait,
Reform Act,
hold on.
for marriage
Don't
act,
talk over
the
this.
right to
Hold on.
marry the person you love. And to my Republican friends, if we could work together the last Congress, there's no reason we can't work together and find consensus on important things in this Congress as well. I think folks, you all are as formed as I am, but I think the people sent us a clear message. Fighting for the sake of fighting, power for the sake of power, conflict for the sake of conflict gets us nowhere. That's always been my vision of our country, and I know it's many of yours. To restore the soul of this nation, to rebuild the backbone of America, America's middle class, and to unite the country. We've been sent here to finish the job, in my view. For decades, the middle class has been hollowed out in more than, and not no one administration, but for a long time. Too many good paying manufacturing jobs move overseas. Factories closed down. Once thriving cities and towns that many of you represent became shadows of what they used to be. Along the way, something else we lost: pride, our sense of self-worth. I ran for president to fundamentally change things, to make sure our economy works for everyone, so we can all feel that pride in what we do. To build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out, not from the top down. Because when the middle class does well, the poor have a ladder up, and the wealthy still do very well. We all do well.
repudiating Ronald Reagan.
We're always quoting my dad.
That's a
But
fun
my dad
picture,
used to
Bernie.
say, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. He really would say this. It's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. Well, folks, so let's look at the results. We're not finished yet by any stretch of the imagination, but unemployment rate is at 3.4%, a 50-year low.
Well, who could applaud that? Not a Republican.
No,
Near
none of
record
them.
unemployment.
What's wrong with these people?
We're not. And there she
Record
is.
unemployment for Black and Hispanic workers. We've already created, your help, 800,000 good-paying manufacturing jobs, the fastest growth in 40 years.
It's just
Where is it written?
astonishing.
Where is it written that America can't lead the world in manufacturing? And I don't know where that's written. For too many decades, we imported projects and exported jobs. Now, thanks to what you've all done, we're exporting American products and creating American jobs. Folks, inflation has been a global problem because the pandemic disrupted our supply chains, and Putin's unfair and brutal war in Ukraine disrupted energy supplies as well as food supplies, blocking all that grain in Ukraine. But we're better positioned than any country on earth right now. But we have more to do. But here at home, inflation is coming down. Here at home, gas prices are down $1.50 from their peak. Food inflation is coming down, not fast enough, but coming down. Inflation has fallen every month for the last 6 months, while take-home pay has gone up. Additionally, over the last 2 years, a record 10 million Americans applied to start new businesses. 10 million.
Wow.
Next,
By the way,
GOP will ignore.
every time someone starts a small business is an act of hope. And Madam Vice President, I want to thank you for leading that effort to ensure that small businesses have access to capital and the historic laws we enacted that are going to just come into being. Standing here last year, I shared with you a story of American genius and possibilities. Semiconductors, small computer chips the size of a fingerprint that power everything, from cell phones to automobiles and so much more. These chips were invented in America. Let's get that straight. They were invented in America. We used to make 40% of the world's chips. In the last several decades, we lost our edge. We're down to only producing 10%. We all saw what happened during the pandemic when chip factories shut down overseas. Today's automobiles need 3,000 chips each of those automobiles. But American automobiles couldn't make enough cars because there weren't enough chips. Car prices went up, people got laid off. So did everything from refrigerators to cell phones. We can never let that happen again. That's why we came together to pass the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act.
Oh, look. Kevin McCarthy's plotting, but I think it's just because they think he's talking about potato chips.
Folks,
And by the way, J.D. Vance is
I
a
know I've been
senator.
criticized for saying this, but I'm not changing my view.
It's up again.
We're going to make sure the supply chain for America
Sorry, Norm.
begins in
I
America.
saw him a couple blocks
The
away from
supply
me the
chain
other day.
begins
I
in
had to
America.
pull back from saying something.
All right.
We've already created 800,000 new manufacturing jobs without this law, before the law kicks in. With this new law, we're going to create hundreds of thousands of new jobs across the country. And I mean all across the country, throughout not just the coast, but through the middle of the country as well. That's going to come from companies that have announced more than $300 billion in investment in American manufacturing over the next few years. Outside of Columbus, Ohio, Intel is building semiconductor factories on 1,000 acres, literally a field of dreams. It's going to create 10,000 jobs, that one investment, 7,000 construction jobs, 3,000 jobs in those factories once they're finished. They call them factories. Jobs paying an average of $130,000 a year, and many do not require a college degree.
This is only announced last year, by the way, that would be coming.
Jobs.
Oh, Ted has a sad.
Because we work together, these jobs where people don't have to leave home to search for opportunity. It's just getting started. Think about the new homes, the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses. So much more that's going to be needed to support those 3,000 permanent jobs and the factories that are going to be built. Talk to mayors and governors, Democrats and Republicans, and they'll tell you what this means for their communities. We're seeing these field of dreams transform to the heartland. But to maintain the strongest economy in the world, we need the best infrastructure in the world. And folks, as you all know, we used to be number one in the world in infrastructure. We've sunk to 13th in the world. The United States of America, 13th in the world in infrastructure, modern infrastructure. But now we're coming back because we came together and passed the bipartisan infrastructure law, the largest investment in infrastructure since President Eisenhower's interstate highway system.
And the Republicans ran on it in the midterms, although they voted against it.
Yeah, luckily they still didn't win.
Already we've funded over 20,000 projects, including major airports from Boston to Atlanta to Portland. Projects that are going to put thousands of people to work rebuilding our highways, our bridges, our railroads, our tunnels, ports, airports, clean water, high-speed internet, all across America. Urban, rural, tribal. And folks, we're just getting started. We're just getting started.
He's crushing it.
And I mean it sincerely. I want to thank my Republican friends who voted for the law and my Republican friends who voted against it as well. But I still get asked to fund the projects in those districts as well. But don't worry. I promised I'd be a president for all Americans. We'll fund these projects. And I'll see you at the groundbreaking.
Wow, he's doing like ridiculously well.
Look at Kevin McCarthy.
It is just stunning.
Unite all of America. Projects like Brent Spence Bridge in Kentucky over the Ohio River, built 60 years ago, badly needed repairs. One of the nation's most congested freight routes, carrying $2 billion worth of freight every single day across the Ohio River. And folks, I've been talking about fixing it for decades.
Yeah.
But we're really finally going to get it done. I went there last month with Democrats and Republicans and from both states. to deliver a commitment of $1.6 billion for this project. And while I was there, I met a young woman named Sarah, who's here tonight. I don't know where Sarah is. Is she up in the box? I don't know. Sarah, how are you? Well, Sarah, for 30 years, I learned, she told me she'd been a proud member of the Iron Workers Local 44, known as the Cowboys in the Sky.
That's so cool. Good for
The
her.
folks who built Cincinnati's skyline. Sarah said she can't wait to be 10 stories above the Ohio River building that new bridge. God bless her. That's pride. And that's what we're also building. We're building back pride. Look, replacing poisonous lead pipes that go into 10 million homes in America, 400,000 school and child care centers. So every child in America can drink the water instead of having permanent damage to their brain. Look, we're making sure.
Well, that would ruin the Republicans.
We're making sure that every community in America has access to affordable high-speed internet. No parent should have to drive by McDonald's parking lot to help them do their homework online with their kids, which many thousands were doing across the country. And when we do these projects, and again, I get criticized for this, but I make no excuses for it. We're going to buy American. We're going to buy America. Folks, and it's totally consistent with international trade rules. Buy America has been the law since 1933, but for too long, past administrations, Democrat and Republican, have fought to get around it. Not anymore. Tonight, I'm announcing new standards that require all construction materials used in federal infrastructure projects to be made in America.
That is
Made in
brilliant.
America.
Yeah,
Who
so
did that?
good.
So brilliant.
I mean it.
Show the
Lumber,
Republicans pouting.
glass, drywall, fiber optic
He is
cable.
exceeding my
And on my watch,
expectations here.
American
Yeah,
roads,
yeah.
bridges, and American highways are going to be made with American
He's
products as
crushing it.
well. Folks, my economic plan is about investing in places and people that have been forgotten. So many of you listening to me tonight, I know you feel it. So many of you felt like you've just simply been forgotten. Amid the economic upheaval of the past 4 decades, too many people have been left behind and treated like they're invisible. Maybe that's you watching from home. Remember the jobs that went away. You remember them, don't you? The folks at home remember them. You wonder whether the path even exists anymore for your children to get ahead without having to move away. Well, that's why I get that. That's why we're building an economy where no one's left behind. Jobs are coming back. Pride is coming back because choices we made in the last several years. You know, this is, in my view, a blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America.
The speech
Make a real difference in your lives at home. For example, too many of you
Great line.
lay in bed at night like my dad did, staring at the ceiling, wondering what in God's name happens if your spouse gets cancer, or your child gets deadly ill, or something happens to you. What are you going to get money to pay for those medical bills? Or are you going to have to sell the house or try to get a second mortgage on it? I get it. I get it. With the Inflation Reduction Act that I signed into law, we're taking on powerful interests to bring healthcare costs down so you can sleep better at night with more security. You know, we pay more for prescription drugs than any nation in the world. Let me say it again. We pay more for prescription drugs than any major nation on earth. For example, 1 in 10 Americans has diabetes. Many of you in this chamber do, and in the audience. But every day, millions need insulin to control their diabetes so they can literally stay alive. Insulin's been around for over 100 years.
I love
The guy
that
who
shot
invented
of
it didn't
olive.
even patent it because he wanted it to be available for everyone. It cost the drug companies roughly $10 a vial to make that insulin. Packaging and all, you may get up to $13. But Big Pharma has been unfairly charging people hundreds of dollars, $400 to $500 a month, making record profits. Not anymore. Not anymore.
I'll mention the EpiPen and see if Joe Manchin stands up.
Many things that we did are only now coming to fruition. We said we were doing this, and we said we passed the law to do it, but people didn't know because the law didn't take effect until January 1 of this year. We capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month for seniors on Medicare.
Norm, that was hysterical.
People are just
And tragic, but also hysterical.
I'm sure you're getting the same calls I'm getting. Look, there are millions of other Americans who do not or are not on Medicare, including 200,000 young people with type 1 diabetes who need this insulin to stay alive. Let's finish the job this time.
Harry David?
Let's cap the cost of insulin for everybody at $35.
No applause, Kevin.
I know I shouldn't be surprised, but like, what is wrong with these people? These broken
Big
people.
Pharma's still going to do very well, I promise you all.
You said it. They're
I
broken.
promise you, they're going to do very well. This law also caps and won't even go into effect until 2025. Costs, out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors on Medicare at a maximum of $2,000 a year. You don't have to pay more than $2,000 a year, no matter how much your drug costs are.
Still a lot of
Because
money.
you know why? You all know it. Many of you, like many in my family, have cancer. You know the drugs can range from $10, $11, $14, $15,000 for the cancer drugs. If drug prices rise faster than inflation, drug companies are going to have to pay Medicare back the difference. We're finally giving Medicare the power to negotiate drug prices. Bringing down prescription drug costs doesn't just save seniors money. It cuts the federal deficit by billions of dollars. By hundreds of billions of dollars.
Oh, this.
Because these prescription drugs are drugs purchased by Medicare to keep their commitment to the seniors. Well, guess what? Instead of paying $400 or $500 a month, you're paying $15. That's a lot of savings for the federal government. And by the way, why wouldn't we want that? Now, some members here are threatening, and I know it's not an official party position, so I'm not going to exaggerate, but threatening to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. As my coach, that's okay. That's fair. As my football coach used to say, lots of luck in your senior year. Make no mistake. If you try anything to raise the cost of prescription drugs, I will veto it. Look, I'm pleased to say that more Americans have health insurance now than ever in history. A record 16 million people are enrolled in the Affordable Care Act. And thanks to the law I signed last year, saving millions are saving $800 a year on their premiums. And by the way, that law was written and the benefit expires in 2025. So my plea to some of you, at least in this audience, let's finish the job and make these savings permanent. Expand coverage of Medicaid.
What is she wearing?
Look, the Inflation Reduction Act is also the most significant investment ever in climate change. Ever. Lowering utility bills, creating American jobs, leading the world to a clean energy future. I visited the devastating aftermath of record floods, droughts, storms, and wildfires from Arizona to Mexico to all the way up to the Canadian border. More timber has been burned, as I've observed from helicopters, than the entire state of Missouri. And we don't have global warming? Not a problem. In addition to emergency recovery, from Puerto Rico to Florida to Idaho, we're rebuilding for the long term. New electric grids that are able to weather major storms and not prevent those forest fires. Roads and water systems withstand the next big flood. Clean energy to cut pollution and create jobs in communities often left behind. We're going to build 500,000 electric vehicle charging stations installed across the country by tens of thousands of IBEW workers. And we're helping families save more than $1,000 a year with tax credits to purchase electric vehicles and efficient appliances, energy efficient appliances. Historic conservation efforts to be responsible stewards of our land. Let's face reality. The climate crisis doesn't care if you're in a red or blue state. It's an existential threat. We have an obligation, not to ourselves, but to our children and grandchildren to confront it. I'm proud of how America at last is stepping up to the challenge. We're still going to need oil and gas for a while. But guess what? No, we do. But there's so much more to do. We got to finish the job. We pay for these investments in our future by finally making the wealthiest and biggest corporations begin to pay their fair share. Just begin. Look, I'm a capitalist. I'm a capitalist, but pay your fair share. I think a lot of you at home agree with me and many people that you know. The tax system is not fair. It is not fair. Look, the idea that in 2020, 55 of the largest corporations in America, the Fortune 500, made $40 billion in profits and paid zero in federal taxes? Zero? Folks, it's simply not fair. But now, because of the law I signed, billion-dollar companies have to pay a minimum of 15%. God love them. 15%. That's less than a nurse pays. And I need to be crystal clear. I said at the very beginning, under my plans, as long as I'm president, nobody earning less than $400,000 will pay an additional penny in taxes. Nobody, not one penny. But let's finish the job. There's more to do. We have to reward work, not just wealth. Pass my proposal for the billionaire minimum tax. You know, there's 1,000 billionaires in America. It's up from about 600 in the beginning of the term. But no billionaire should be paying a lower tax rate than a school teacher or firefighter. I mean it. Think about it.
Amen.
Who could argue with that? All Republicans.
222 members of the House.
Look at Kevin
and
McCarthy.
in the Senate.
Enthusiastic about that, but think about it. Think about it. Have you noticed Big Oil just reported its profits, record profits? Last year, they made $200 billion in the midst of a global energy crisis. I think it's outrageous. Why? They invested too little of that profit to increase domestic production. And when I talk to a couple of them, they say, we're afraid you're going to shut down all the oil wells and all the oil refineries anyway, so why should we invest in them? I said, we're going to need oil for at least another decade. And that's going to exceed.
What is wrong with Kevin McCarthy? Like, he's such a horrible.
We're going to need it.
He has like empty shark eyes, like he's about to
If
bite.
they had, in fact, invested in the production to keep gas prices down, instead, they used the record profits to buy back their own stock, rewarding their CEOs and shareholders. Corporations ought to do the right thing. That's why I propose we quadruple the tax on corporate stock buybacks and encourage long-term investments. They'll still make considerable profit.
Happy,
Let's
Jen?
finish the job and close the loopholes that allow very wealthy to avoid paying their taxes. Instead of cutting the number of audits for wealthy taxpayers, I just signed a law to reduce the deficit by $114 billion by cracking down on wealthy tax cheats. That's being fiscally responsible.
Bill Manchin, hi.
Well, Donald Trump's rolling around.
My administration has cut the deficit by more than $1.7 trillion, the largest deficit reduction in American history. Under the previous administration, the American deficit went up 4 years in a row. Because those record deficits, no president added more to the national debt in any 4 years than my predecessor. Nearly 25% of the entire national debt that took over 200 years to accumulate.
This is part of my
added
fantasy.
by just one administration alone, the last one. They're the facts. Check it out. Check it out.
That's going to become a meme. Check it out.
They did the right thing. They lifted the debt ceiling 3 times without preconditions or crisis. They paid American bills to prevent an economic disaster in the country. So tonight I'm asking the Congress to follow suit. Let's commit here tonight to the full faith and credit of the United States of America will never, ever be questioned. So some of my Republican friends want to take the economy hostage. I get it, unless I agree to their economic plans. All of you at home should know what those plans are. Instead of making the wealthy pay their fair share, some Republicans want Medicare and Social Security to sunset. I'm not saying it's a majority.
This is what I want.
Me too. This is excellent.
Contact my office. I'll give you a copy. I'll give you
Hey,
a
look, it's
copy
Balloon
of the
Girl.
proposal.
Fuck her.
That means Congress doesn't.
I prefer not to.
Well, I'm glad to see you. No, I tell you, I enjoy conversion. You know, it means if Congress doesn't keep the programs the way they are, they'd go away. Other Republicans say, I'm not saying it's a majority of you. I don't even think it's even a significant, but it's being proposed by individuals. I'm not politely not naming them, but it's being proposed by some of you. Look, folks, the idea is that we're not going to be moved into being threatened to default on the debt if we don't respond. Folks.
Oh, Mike Lee, go fuck yourself.
The broomstick.
So, folks, as we all apparently agree, Social Security and Medicare is off the books now, right? They're not.
Oh, he suckered them in.
Oh, well played. Well played.
Holy shit, he's good. He's good.
He's so good, and they're so bad. Look at Kevin. McCarthy's like sighing. I mean, beautiful.
All right.
From the very first paycheck they started. So tonight, let's all agree, and we apparently are. Let's stand up for seniors.
Kevin McCarthy stands up and applauds.
Stand up and show them. We will not cut Social Security. We will not cut Medicare. Those benefits belong to the American people. They earned it. And if anyone tries to cut Social Security, which apparently no one's going to do, and if anyone tries to cut Medicare, I'll stop them. I'll veto it. And look, I'm not going to allow them to be taken away. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. But apparently it's not going to be a problem. Next month, when I offer my fiscal plan, I ask my Republican friends to lay down their plan as well. I really mean it. Let's sit down together and discuss our mutual plans together.
Look at Kamala Harris.
Goldberg, you don't think he's sharp enough? Even right? This guy's on his feet.
I want running for
He's
reelection.
on his feet.
So good.
He's at the top of his game. Come on, people.
The plan I'm going to show you is going to cut the deficit by another $2 trillion. And it won't cut a single bit of Medicare or Social Security. In fact, we're going to extend the Medicare Trust Fund at least 2 decades, because that's going to be the next argument. How do we keep it solvent, right? Well, we'll not raise tax on anyone making under 400 grand, but we'll pay for it the way we talked about tonight, by making sure that the wealthy and big corporations pay their fair share. Look. Here's the deal. They aren't just taking advantage of the tax code. They're taking advantage of you, the American consumer. Here's my message to all of you out there. I have your back. We're already preventing Americans from receiving surprise medical bills, stopping $1 billion surprise bills per month so far. We're protecting seniors' life savings by cracking down on nursing homes that commit fraud, endanger patient safety, prescribe drugs that are not needed. Millions of Americans can now save thousands of dollars because they can finally get a hearing aid over the counter without a prescription. Look, capitalism without competition is not capitalism. It's extortion. It's exploitation. Last year, I cracked down with the help of many of you on foreign shipping companies that were making you pay higher prices for every good coming into the country. I signed a bipartisan bill that cut shipping costs by 90%, helping American farmers, businessmen, and consumers. Let's finish the job. Pass the bipartisan legislation to strengthen antitrust enforcement and prevent big online platforms from giving their own products
Antitrust
an unfair
enforcement.
advantage.
Well, I hope it extends to the media.
A big kiss to Jen.
You're such a nerd, Jen.
My administration is
It's
also
just the
taking
business
on
law
junk
stuff I
fees.
love.
Those hidden surcharges too many companies use to make you pay more. For example, we're making airlines show you the full ticket price up front, refund your money if your
Junk
flight is canceled or
fees.
delayed. We reduce exorbitant bank overdrafts by saving consumers more than $1 billion a year. We're cutting credit card late fees by 75% from $30 to $8. Look, junk fees may not matter to the very wealthy, but they matter to most other folks in homes like the one I grew up in, like many of you did. They add up to hundreds of dollars a month. They make it harder for you to pay your bills or afford that family trip. I know how unfair it feels when a company overcharges you and gets away with it. Not anymore. We've written a bill to stop it all. It's called the Junk Fee Prevention Act. We're going to ban surprise resort fees that hotels charge on your bill. Those fees can cost you up to $90 a night at hotels that aren't even resorts. The idea that cable, internet, and cell phone companies can charge you $200 or more if you decide to switch to another provider. Give me a break. We can stop service fees on tickets to concerts and sporting events and make companies disclose all the fees up front. And we'll prohibit airlines from charging $50 round trip for a family just to be able to sit together. Baggage fees are bad enough. Airlines can't treat your child like a piece of baggage. Americans are tired of being. We're tired of being played for suckers.
America, I love that line.
Pass the Junk Fee Prevention Act so companies stop ripping us off. For too long, workers have been getting stiffed, but not anymore. We're beginning to restore the dignity of work. For example, I should have known this, but I didn't until 2 years ago.
That's for
30
Sharon.
million workers have to sign non-compete agreements for the jobs they take. 30 million. So a cashier at a burger place can't walk across town and take the same job at another burger place and make a few bucks more. It just changed. But they just changed it because we exposed it. That was part of the deal, guys. Look it up. But not anymore. We're banning those agreements so companies have to compete for workers and pay them what they're worth.
He handles hecklers pretty well.
This is bound to get a response from my friends on my left but the right. I'm so sick and tired of companies breaking the law by preventing workers from organizing. Pass the PRO Act. because business have a right, workers have a right to form a union. And let's guarantee all workers have a living wage. Let's make sure working parents can afford to raise a family with sick days, paid family medical leave, affordable child care.
Yeah, let's not applaud that.
That's going to enable
the horrors.
millions of more people to go and stay at work. And let's restore the full child tax credit, which gave tens of millions of parents some breathing room and cut child poverty in half to the lowest level in history. And by
Thanks,
the way,
Joe Manchin.
when we do all these things, we increase productivity, we increase economic growth. So let's finish the job and get more families access to affordable, quality housing. Let's get seniors who want to stay in their homes the care they need to do so. Let's give more breathing room to millions of family caregivers looking after their loved ones. Pass my plan so we get seniors and people with disabilities the home care and services they need. And support the workers who are doing God's work. These plans are fully paid for and we can afford to do them. Restoring the dignity of work means making education an affordable ticket to the middle class. You know, when we made public education, 12 years of it universal in the last century, we made the best educated, best paid, we became the best educated, best paid nation in the world. But the rest of the world's caught up. It's caught up. Jill, my wife, who teaches full time, has an expression. I hope I get it right, kid. Any nation that out-educates us is going to outcompete us. Any nation that out-educates is going to outcompete us. Folks, we all know 12 years of education is not enough to win the economic competition of the 21st century. We want to have the best educated workforce. Let's finish the job by providing access to preschool for 3 and 4 years old. Studies show that children who go to preschool are nearly 50% more likely to finish high school and go on to earn a 2 or 4 year degree, no matter their background they came from. Let's give public school teachers a raise.
He's hitting the right notes, baby.
Yeah.
And well, doing them well.
We're making progress.
I'm
By
gobsmacked.
reducing
I'm
student
still
debt,
awake.
increasing Pell Grants for working and middle-class families. Let's finish the job. And
That's
connect
the
students to
criterion.
career opportunities starting in high school. Provide access to 2 years of community college. The best career training in America, in addition to being a pathway to a 4-year degree. Let's offer every American a path to a good career, whether they go to college or not. And folks,
What is that yellow?
in the
thing
midst
that
of the
that woman
COVID
is wearing?
crisis, when schools were closed and we were shutting down everything, let's recognize how far we came in the fight against the pandemic itself. While the virus is not gone, thanks to the resilience of the American people and the ingenuity of medicine, we've broken the COVID grip on us. COVID deaths are down by 90%. We've saved millions of lives and opened up our country. We opened our country back up, and soon we'll end the public health emergency. But that's called a public health emergency. But we'll remember the toll and pain that's never going to go away. More than 1 million Americans lost their lives to COVID. 1 million. Families grieving, children orphaned, empty chairs at the dining room table constantly reminding you that she used to sit there. Remembering them, we remain vigilant. We still need to monitor dozens of variants and support new vaccines and treatments. So Congress needs to fund these efforts and keep America safe. And as we emerge from this crisis stronger, we're also got to double down on prosecuting criminals who stole relief money meant to keep workers and small businesses afloat.
Including members of Congress.
Oh gosh, Merrick stood up. Yeah, I'll see it when I believe it.
Yeah,
Oh, I
no
didn't say
kidding.
that. Shoot.
It's okay.
Before I came to office, you remember, during that campaign, the big issue was about inspector generals who would protect taxpayers' dollars who were sidelined. They were fired. Many people said we don't need them. And fraud became rampant. Last year, I told you the watchdogs are back. Since then, we recovered billions of taxpayers' dollars. Now let's triple the anti-fraud strike force going after these criminals, double the statute of limitations on these crimes, and crack down on identity fraud by criminal syndicates stealing billions of dollars from the American people. And the data shows that for every dollar we put into fighting fraud, the taxpayers get back at least 10 times as much. It matters. It matters. Look, COVID left its scars, like the spike in violent crime in 2020, the first year of the pandemic. We have an obligation to make sure all people are safe. Public safety depends on public trust, as all of us know. But too often that trust is violated. Joining us tonight are the parents of Tyree Nichols. Welcome. We had to bury Tyree last week. As many of you personally know, there's no words to describe the heartache or grief of losing a child. But imagine if you lost that child at the hands of the law. Imagine having to worry whether your son or daughter came home from walking down the street, playing in the park, or just driving a car. Most of us in here have never had to have the talk that brown and black parents have had to have with their children. Bo, Hunter, Ashley, my children. I never had to have the talk with them. I never had to tell them if a police officer pulls you over, turn your interior lights on right away. Don't reach for your license. Keep your hands on the steering wheel. Imagine having to worry like that every single time your kid got in a car. Here's what Tyree's mother shared with me when I spoke to her. When I asked her how she finds the courage to carry on and speak out. The faith of God, she said her son was, quote, a beautiful soul, and something good will come of this. Imagine how much courage and carry that takes. It's up to us, to all of us. We all want the same thing. Neighborhoods free of violence. Law enforcement who earns the community's trust. Just as every cop, when they pin on that badge in the morning, has a right to be able to go home at night, so does everybody else out there. Our children have a right to come home safely. Equal protection under the law is a covenant we have with each other in America. We know police officers put their lives on the line every single night and day. And we know we ask them in many cases to do too much, to be counselors, social workers, psychologists, responding to drug overdoses, mental health crises, and so much more. In one sense, we ask much too much of them. I know most cops and their families are good, decent, honorable people, the vast majority. But they risk their lives every time they put that shield on. But what happened to Tyree in Memphis happens too often. We have to do better. Give law enforcement the real training they need. Hold them to higher standards. Help them succeed in keeping us safe. We also need more first responders and professionals to address the growing mental health, substance abuse challenges. More resources to reduce violent crime and gun crime. More community intervention programs. More investment in housing, education, and job training. All this can help prevent violence in the first place. When police officers or police departments violate the public trust, they must be held accountable. With the support of the families of victims, civil rights groups, and law enforcement, I signed an executive order for all federal officers, banning chokeholds, restricting no-knock warrants, and other key elements of the George Floyd Act. Let's commit ourselves to make the words of Tyler's mom true. Something good must come from this. Something good. And all of us, folks, it's difficult, but it's simple. All of us in this chamber, we need to rise to this moment. We can't turn away. Let's do what we know in our hearts that we need to do. Let's come together to finish the job on police reform. Do something. Do something. That was the plea of parents who lost their children in Uvalde. I met with every one of them. Do something about gun violence. Thank God. Thank God we did. Passing the most sweeping gun safety law in 3 decades. That includes things like that the majority of responsible gun owners already support. Enhanced background checks for 18 to 21 years old. Red flag laws, keeping guns out of the hands of people who are a danger to themselves and others. But we know our work is not done. Joining us tonight is Brandon Say, a 26-year-old hero. Brandon put his college dreams on hold to be at his mom's side. His mom's side when she was dying from cancer. And Brandon now works at the dance studio started by his grandparents. And 2 weeks ago, during the Lunar New Year celebrations, he heard the studio door close. And he saw a man standing there pointing a semi-automatic pistol at him. He thought he was going to die, but he thought about the people inside. And in that instant, he found the courage to act and wrestled a semi-automatic pistol away from the gunman who had already killed 11 people in another dance studio. 11. He saved lives. It's time we do the same. Ban assault weapons now. Ban them now.
Damn.
For all. I led the fight to do that in 1994. And in 10 years, that ban was law and mass shootings went down. After we let it expire in the Republican administration, mass shootings tripled. Let's finish the job and ban these assault weapons. And let's also come together on immigration. Make it a bipartisan issue once again. We know we now have a record number of personnel working to secure the border, arresting 8,000 human smugglers, seizing over 23,000 pounds of fentanyl in just the last several months. We've launched a new border plan last month. Unlawful migration from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela has come down 97% as a consequence of that. But American border problems won't be fixed until Congress acts. If we don't pass my comprehensive immigration reform, at least pass my plan to provide the equipment and officers to secure the border. And a pathway to citizenship for dreamers, those on temporary status, farm workers, essential workers. Here in the People's House, it's our duty to protect all the people's rights and freedoms. Congress must restore the right and the Congress must restore the right that was taken away in Roe v. Wade and protect Roe v. Wade. Give every woman a consular right.
Damn.
The Vice President and I
He ain't dealing.
to protect access to reproductive healthcare.
Clearly, I was the
and
audience for
safeguard
the
patient
speech. Now I
safety.
realize.
He is
We're
not
supporting
playing with
the
these
states are
people. He's
enforcing
ripping
extreme
them a new one.
abortion bans. Make no mistake about it. If Congress passes a national ban, I will veto it. But let's also pass the Bipartisan Equality Act to ensure LGBTQ Americans, especially transgender young people, can live with safety and dignity. Our strength is not just the example of our power, but the power of our example. Let's remember the world's watching. I spoke in this chamber 1 year ago, just days after Vladimir Putin unleashed his brutal attack against Ukraine. A murderous assault, evoking images of death and destruction Europe suffered in World War II. Putin's invasion has been a test for the ages, a test for America, a test for the world. Would we stand for the most basic of principles? Would we stand for sovereignty? We stand for the right of people to live free of tyranny? Will we stand for the defense of democracy? For such defense matters to us because it keeps peace and prevents open season on would-be aggressors and threatens our prosperity. 1 year later, we know the answer. Yes, we would, and we did. We did.
He's snapping to that.
And together, we did what America always does at our best. We led. We united NATO. We built a global coalition. We stood against Putin's aggression. We stood with the Ukrainian people. Tonight, we're once again joined by Ukrainian's ambassador to the United States. She represents not just her nation, but the courage of her people. Our ambassador is here, we're united in our support of your country. Will you stand so we can all take a look at you?
Love the head of the dude next to it.
We're going to stand with you as long as it takes. Our nation is working for more freedom, more dignity, more peace, not just in Europe, but everywhere. Before I came to office, the story was about how the People's Republic of China was increasing its power and America was failing in the world. Not anymore. We made clear, and I made in my personal conversations, which have been many, with President Xi, that we seek competition, not conflict. But I will make no apologies that we're investing to make America stronger. Investing in American innovation and industries will define the future that China intends to be dominating. Investing in our alliances and working with our allies to protect advanced technologies so they will not be used against us. Modernizing our military to safeguard stability and deter aggression. Today, we're in the strongest position in decades to compete with China or anyone else in the world. Anyone else in the world. And I'm committed. I'm committed to work with China where we can advance American interests and benefit the world. But make no mistake about it. As we made clear last week, if China threatens our sovereignty, we will act to protect our country, and we did. Let's be clear. Winning the competition should unite all of us. We face serious challenges across the world. But in the past 2 years, democracies have become stronger, not weaker. Autocracies have grown weaker, not stronger. Name me a world leader who changed places with Xi Jinping. Name me one. Name me one. America's rallying the world to meet those challenges, from climate to global health, to food insecurity, to terrorism, to territorial aggression. Allies are stepping up, spending more, and doing more.
He means no one's siding with China. They're siding with us.
The bridges we're forming between partners in the Pacific and those in the Atlantic, and those who bet against America are learning how wrong they are. It's never, ever been a good bet to bet against America. Never. Well, when I came to office, most assured that bipartisanship assumed was impossible, but never believed it. That's why a year ago, I offered a unity agenda to the nation as I stood here. We made real progress together. We passed a law making it easy for doctors to prescribe effective treatments for opioid addiction. We passed the gun safety law, making historic investments in mental health. We launched the ARPA-H drive for breakthrough in the fights against cancer, Alzheimer's, and diabetes, and so much more. We passed the Heath Robinson PACT Act, named after the late Iraq War veteran whose story about exposure to toxic burn kits I shared here last year.
There you go. These are all bipartisan efforts that they should cheer.
I understand something about those burn pits, but there's so much more to do. We can do it together. Joining us tonight is a father named Doug from Newton, New Hampshire. He wrote Jill, my wife, a letter, and me as well, about his courageous daughter, Courtney. A contagious laugh, his sister's best friend, her sister's best friend. He shared a story all too familiar to millions of Americans and many of you in the audience. Courtney discovered pills in high school. It spiraled into addiction and eventually death from a fentanyl overdose. She was just 20 years old. Describing the last 8 years without her, Doug said, "There's no worse pain." Yet their family has turned pain to purpose, working to end the stigma and change laws. He told us he wants to start a journey toward American recovery. Doug, we're with you. Fentanyl is killing more than 70,000 Americans a year. You got it. So let's launch a major surge to stop fentanyl production in the sale and trafficking, with more drug detection machines, inspection cargo, stop pills and powder at the border. Working with couriers like FedEx to inspect more packages for drugs. Strong penalties to crack down on fentanyl trafficking. Second, let's do more on mental health, especially for our children. When millions of young people are struggling with bullying, violence, trauma, we give them greater access to mental health care at their schools. We must finally hold social media companies accountable for experimenting they're doing running children for profit. It's time to pass bipartisan legislation to stop big tech from collecting personal data on our kids and teenagers online. Ban targeted advertising to children and impose stricter limits on the personal data that companies collect on all of us. Third, let's do more to keep this nation's one truly sacred obligation to equip those we send into harm's way and care for them and their families when they come home. Job training, job placement for veterans and their spouses as they come to return to civilian life. Helping veterans afford the rent, because no one should be homeless in America, especially someone who served the country.
I can't wait to see what Sarah Sanders says. It's going to be a joke. He's killing it.
Dennis McDonough is here, the VA. We had a first real discussion when I asked him to take the job. I'm glad he did. We were losing up to 25 veterans a day on suicide. Now we're losing 17 a day to the silent scourge of suicide. 17 veterans a day are committing suicide. More than all the people being killed in the wars. Folks, VA is doing everything it can, including expanding mental health screening, proven programs that recruits veterans to help other veterans understand what they're going through, get them the help they need. We got to do more. And fourth, last year, Jill and I reignited the cancer moonshot that I was able to start with President Obama asked me to lead our administration on this issue. Our goal is to cut the cancer death rates at least by 50% in the next 25 years. Turn more cancers from death sentences to treatable diseases. Provide more support for patients and their families. It's personal to so many of us in this audience. Joining us are Morris and Candice, an Irishman and the daughter of immigrants from Panama. They met and fell in love in New York City and got married in the same chapel Jill and I got married in New York City. Kindred spirits. He wrote us a letter about his little daughter, Ava, and I saw her just before I came over. She was just a year old when she was diagnosed with rare kidney disease, cancer. After 26 blood transfusions, 11 rounds of radiation, 8 rounds of chemo, 1 kidney removed, given a 5% survival rate. He wrote how in the darkest moments he thought, if she goes, I can't stay. Many of you have been through that as well. Jill and I understand that like so many of you. And he read Jill's book describing our family's cancer journey and how we tried to steal moments of joy where we could with Bo. For them, that glimmer of joy was the half smile of their baby girl. It meant everything to them. They never gave up hope. Little Ava never gave up hope. She turns 4 next month. They just found out Ava's beating the odds, is on her way to being cured of cancer. And she's watching from the White House tonight if she's not asleep already. For the lives we can save. For the lives we can save and the lives we've lost, let this be a truly American moment that rallies the country and the world together and proves that we can still do big things. 20 years ago, under the leadership of President Bush and countless advocates and champions, he undertook a bipartisan effort through PEPFAR to transform the global fight against HIV/AIDS. It's been a huge success. He thought big, he thought large, he moved. I believe we can do the same thing with cancer. Let's end cancer as we know it. Cure some cancers once and for all. Folks, there's one reason why we've been able to do all of these things. Our democracy itself. It's the most fundamental thing of all. With democracy, everything's possible. Without it, nothing is. The last few years, our democracy has been threatened and attacked, put at risk, put to the test in this very room on January the 6th. And then just a few months ago, an unhinged big lie, assailed and unleashed a political violence, the home of the then Speaker of the House of Representatives, using the very same language the insurrectionists used as they stalked these halls and chanted on January 6th. Here tonight in this chamber is a man who bears the scars of that brutal attack, but is as tough and as strong, as resilient as they get. My friend Paul Pelosi. Paul, stand up.
Love his hat.
He looks like Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, he does.
It's such a heinous act. It should have never happened. We must all speak out.
Is he sitting with Bono?
There's no place for political violence in America. We have to protect the right to
that
vote,
hat,
not
though.
suppress the fundamental right. Honor the results of our elections, not subvert the will of people. We have to uphold the rule of law and restore trust in our institutions of democracy. We must give hate and extremism in any form no safe harbor. Democracy must not be a partisan issue. It's an American issue. Every generation of Americans has faced a moment where they have been called to protect our democracy, defend it, stand up for it. And this is our moment. My fellow Americans, we meet tonight at an inflection point, one of those moments that only a few generations ever face, where the direction we now take is going to decide the course of this nation for decades to come. We're not bystanders of history. We're not powerless before the forces that confront us. It's within our power of we, the people. We're facing the test of our time. We have to be the nation we've always been at our best. Optimistic, hopeful, forward-looking. A nation that embraces light over dark, hope over fear, unity over division, stability over chaos. We have to see each other not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. We're good people. The only nation in the world built on an idea. The only one. Other nations are defined by geography, ethnicity. But we're the only nation based on an idea that all of us, every one of us, is created equal in the image of God. A nation that stands as a beacon to the world. A nation in a new age of possibilities. So I've come to fulfill my constitutional obligation to report in the State of the Union. And here's my report. Because the soul of this nation is strong, because the backbone of this nation is strong, because the people of this nation are strong, the State of the Union is strong.
How do you not stand for that, Kevin?
Or most of his colleagues.
Yeah.
I'm not new to this place. I stand here tonight, having served as long as about any one of you have ever served here. But I've never been more optimistic about our future, about the future of America. Just to remember who we are. We're the United States of America, and there's nothing beyond our capacity if we do it together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you.
Good close. Good opening, good close, good middle. One hour and 15 minutes, I believe.
It flew by, actually.
It was a well-delivered speech.
Before we get to the quality of the speech, I think that one of the reasons I'm having such a hard time, Norm, I honestly can't imagine how you're feeling. I was thinking of you the whole time. But just, on a personal level for me, it was just the contrast of this deep humanity, this deeply humane man, and the just abject cravenness and cruelty that is the legacy of the previous administration and, quite honestly, my fucking family. I'm having a really hard time just seeing what has been spawned. And sorry, I'm just and how I worry how little it will matter to a significant minority of the American people. So that's my I think that anybody who questions President Biden after this is not a serious person, and I don't care. I have no interest in hearing what they have to say. So sorry, that's my I'm quite difficult time processing all of this. But Norm, I want to start with you because one of the things that struck me, I mean, again, we can get to this later, but quality aside, I've never, ever seen a State of the Union that was so emotional and deeply felt and just, again, humane, and extraordinary in its ability to try at least to appeal to our common humanity.
Yes. I mean, there were some really difficult moments for me.
I can't imagine.
And for anybody who's lost a child. And mine is 8 years also, just as that poor man who lost his son. And it doesn't change. I mean, it changes. It doesn't get easier.
Right.
But Biden is just has just enormous empathy, and it's genuine with him. But just stepping back from that as much as I can, his ability to do that and then segue multiple times to focus on important ideas, the way in which he played the hecklers. And, when he said, "We're all good," I was thinking of a list of exceptions to that who happened to be in that room at the very same time. And just thinking about all those moments that should have been applause lines for everybody to stand up that weren't. I was a little disappointed with the C-SPAN camera coverage. It focused far more on the Democrats, and when they panned the chamber, they focused on the Democratic side. I really wanted to see some of those reactions. And we know, the heckling was just outrageous. I do wish my son Danny texted and said, "I wish Biden would turn around to McCarthy and say, 'Can't you control your Marjorie Taylor Greenes?'"
Yeah.
Which would not have been probably the right thing to do, but it sure would have been nice to see.
Would have been fun.
Yeah, but with all of that, having watched dozens of these, and a lot of them, even the good ones, by the time you get to the hour mark, you're kind of looking at your watch. And they are all litanies of, you have the checklist and you have to go through all of those things. But I cannot recall one that really, I can't say it flew by, but one where you weren't looking at the watch and you weren't thinking, okay, when is he going to talk about this or when is he going to talk about that? It was an extraordinarily well-crafted speech, but the best delivery of a speech that Biden has given in his entire long life. And the only sad thing is that most Americans don't watch State of the Union messages. But, one thing I'm glad about, I would say, I really like the fact that he focused on things like insulin, child care, the child tax credit, community college, that are wildly popular across the board in the country. And now they have to follow through and just keep pushing these things and let Republicans reject things that are popular among Republicans. That was the flaw in Build Back Better. They used a slogan instead of separating out these hugely popular things and lost the rhetorical battle and the framing battle. He framed this, including, of course, the brilliant way he dealt with Social Security, just so well. And it's a template for what Democrats in Congress have to do now. I'll just say, tomorrow morning, I'm speaking to what I think will be a large group of House Democrats, mostly about how you deal with being in the minority. And one part of it is I want them to put enormous pressure on the Senate, where a majority can actually do counter hearings and, use some of that to frame it. But now the House Democrats can use their own capacity to keep these issues on the front burner, to force the other side to respond to them, to make them continue to take positions that are unpopular even among Republicans. And they sure as hell better do that. Hakeem, I think, is very good at being able to get them mobilized.
Yeah, I agree, and I can't wait to hear how that goes, because I think that will be fascinating, and they're lucky to have you talking to them. Waj, I also thought of you and your family during this speech, which I don't want to damn it with faint praise by saying it's the best State of the Union I've ever heard, because they usually suck.
Yeah.
It's one of the best. I can think of very few speeches that were better than this. And part of it was the sort of his ability to rope-a-dope the utterly disgraceful, disrespectful, egregious. I'll keep coming up with adjectives to describe the just the hideousness of this Republican Party. So, Waj, before we started, we did a pregame of, what's your fantasy of what Biden will say and what do you think he actually will say? And I have to be honest, I think this speech couldn't have been better. I mean, it was just sort of the perfect blend of toughness, straight, going at the issue, hopefulness, and just drawing a very bright line between his approach, his understanding of what America means, and the Republican Party, who can't even stand and applaud for all of the good things that have been done for the American people in the last 2 years.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where my hope for Biden before I read, text of the speech was that first and foremost, he would come and flex hard without apology. And then he would pivot, flex and pivot. Flex to remind Americans and tell Americans that it was me and my administration that did this for you, X, Y, and Z. And then pivot with the contrast, which is very important when it comes to media framing, that, by the way, the GOP is not helping you. And the topics I wanted him to really hit were the debt ceiling crisis, Social Security, Medicare, assault weapons. And he did that. And he did it in a really Biden-esque way. And he essentially has put him in a checkmate. And I'll explain it this way. He knows for a fact that the GOP is so emboldened in its extremism, with Rick Scott, Lindsey Graham, and others openly bragging about, cutting Social Security and Medicare, two of the most popular programs that we have, that he said, okay, let's do a gambit, real time. You guys are for Social Security, right? You guys are fine with elders and seniors who have opted in, right? You want to protect them. And Kevin McCarthy stuck because he knows that the extremists in his party are willing to take this country over the cliff to cut Social Security and Medicare. But now he has them on camera, on tape, and he has cut a 2024 ad, not only for himself, but Democrats, because we know that they're going to try to cut Social Security and Medicare, and we know that now Democrats have a win. I hate to think like this politically, but this is what he did. He did political chess the entire time. Even when it came to China, a brilliant, subtle move that I don't know if people noticed. He talked about China. He talked about standing up to China, but then he caps it off before going to the next point with this kind of unifying rallying cry about America that got the entire chamber to stand up and clap. So that one moment where Marjorie Taylor Greene was waiting with her stupid white balloon to pounce on him, he didn't give it to her. And so this is where I feel what Biden did really well. He flexed. He reminded Americans that he inherited chaos from Donald Trump, didn't mention him by his name, but the debt and the deficit, Inflation Reduction Act. And now he has, if you will, the Republicans in a chokehold. He has them in a chokehold over Social Security, on Medicare, on capping insulin at $35. And the fact that he took his time to really connect the dots, I think, is very important. People forget that the original makers of insulin, they sold the patent for $1 because their intention, Mary, was to make it affordable for everyone in America. This wealthiest country in the world, it's the most expensive than any other country. So What psychotic sadist would be against capping insulin at $35? Republicans.
That's right.
Ban assault weapons. When he said, about gun shootings, did you notice that Kevin McCarthy did not applaud when he talked about ending mass shootings? It's remarkable.
Right.
So I think in those three issues, in addition to what you all were saying, his ability to empathize. See, Biden's strength is not being an if you will, a verbose type of eloquent orator like Bill Clinton and President Obama. He has a stuttering problem, folks. And he spent weeks on this speech. His strength is through empathy. My son died. My son had cancer. My wife died in a car accident. I know pain. I lived through pain. And yet I'm still here. I'm resilient and hopeful. So having Tyree Nichols' mom and dad stand up, amazing. And also, I would say the Cancer Moonshot Initiative, and I'll end it on this. We can talk a lot more. But I'm so glad he talked about it. It's personal, as you all know, but his Moonshot Initiative has not gotten enough attention. Him and Jill Biden's, their initiative is to cut cancer deaths by half in the next 25 years and improve the lives of cancer survivors. It's very ambitious. Cancer is one of the top leading killers of all Americans. And the fact that he brought up that biracial couple, right, that story can only usually be told in America, and the fact that their daughter survived thanks to a donor. I mean, for those who don't know, and I'll quickly say this, I have a 6-year-old Nuseba who just put to bed, I had to take her to LabCorp today. For those, unfortunately, who have gone through cancer, I hope you never go through it, because there's something called scanxiety. We got to take scans, and every couple of months. So this blood test comes out good, but she's full of life. My daughter, she's 6 years old. She braided her hair today. She was dancing. We watched Sing 2 on Netflix, and it's one of those situations where you bring in these human stories and you go, if we just care about each other, if we just have hope, if we invest in people. And also, the last thing I'll say, because I had to mention this, he put another stranglehold in the Republicans, Mary. Taxing the rich.
Yep.
Rules for taxing the rich. Even Fox viewers, when they did the Fox poll, who did not applaud? Republicans.
Right.
Corporations paying their fair share. Who did not applaud? Republicans. Paid family leave, child tax credit. So I feel on these broad economic issues, plus with humanity, plus projecting strength and flexing, I personally am very pleasantly surprised. For those of you who read my tweets, I gave him props. I said, very well done. I was personally afraid, Mary, that he would not pivot and hit, but he hit him in a Biden-esque way, where he said, I know not all Republicans are like this. Very smart, because you want to bring in folks for the 2020 election. But I know enough of you are, and Marjorie Taylor Greene gave him gifts by yelling and shouting to the point where Kevin McCarthy on camera had to tell them to shush up.
That's right.
Well done, Biden.
Yeah, Adam, before you and Allie hop back on, I'm a bit of a basket case right now, because just the contrast between what we just lived through and now having this deeply empathetic man, thankfully leading the country. And I actually, one of the things that surprised me about it was incredibly eloquent. And it was so deeply felt, and he did go right at the Republicans. Now, again, not in the way that we would have wanted in our fantasies, although, you know what, maybe that wouldn't be the right thing to do, right? But he did go at them. He blamed them for mass shootings by pointing out that because they allowed the assault weapon ban to lapse, et cetera, et cetera. So, what are some of your takeaways? And are you also a basket? I think I can't stop crying. I don't know what's. I mean, it's really personal to me, as it is. I mean, in a different way from how it's personal to Norm and Waj. But just knowing that so much of the cruelty we're living with is the responsibility of somebody I'm related to. It's a little hard to deal with. But again, knowing that we are in the hands of somebody, a human being, who values humaneness and humanity is pretty cool too. I think you're muted.
I was gonna say everything I had planned on saying. I feel like I can't say now after listening to Waj and then hearing you, because it's, it is such a serious topic. I was going to note.
Please introduce levity. I
Yeah,
would be grateful to you.
We thought it was one of the best speeches that he had ever given off of using, Hunter Biden's laptop as a teleprompter. We thought Hunter's dad did an incredible job. But with that said, no, I think he spoke to everybody. There may be something someone watching didn't like, if someone just doesn't get why, assault weapons need to be banned. But he, topic by topic, this stuff, whether it's cancer, whether it's, a teacher that needs a pay raise, whether it's, unfair taxes, he spoke to everybody that was watching, and more or less, depending on what someone's age is, probably on a magnitude of different issues. And it was incredibly touching. He brought a Brandon, who saved lives, which I thought was incredible.
Yeah.
But I think that the piece Waj hit on in terms of empathy, I think that, he just does an incredible job, but it's heartfelt, it's real. And I don't think we could have asked for anything more tonight than probably our list of dreams at the start.
I agree. And Ali, Jen pointed out during the President Biden's remarks that it turns out that she was the audience for the speech. Remember, before it started, we're like, who's going to be the audience? Is it going to be the imaginary middle or what? And it turns out that it was us. And does that surprise? It surprises me. Does it surprise you that he pulled it off to the degree that he did?
No, not really. I felt like, I don't know, he hit on a lot of things that have been really relevant recently, like bringing Tyree Nichols' family.
Yeah, that was extraordinary.
Yeah, I thought that was really powerful, honestly, just to see them. And I felt like he also did speak about bipartisanship and working with the Republicans on their fiscal plan. So it was like a classic Joe, still want to work with you guys, even though you're freaking batshit. So I thought that was, it reflected well on him. But yeah, no, I thought overall it was a really good speech. And they're going to have their qualms with it no matter what. Of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene's going to heckle him because that's just what she does. And Kevin McCarthy's going to look miserable the entire time because that's just what he does. He could have said he's going to solve world peace or whatever. And they still would have an issue with it. So I'm not surprised there. I thought he did everything he was supposed to do, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and the only downside is, as Waj just pointed out, we have the great misfortune of not being able to listen to Sarah Huckabee Sanders totally screw her political future over by giving the rebuttal to the State of the Union, which, as we know historically, is a terrible, terrible thing to do. Just ask Bobby Jindal how it's going for him.
How's your water moment? Here's our water moment.
Oh, Marco Rubio just joined us, folks. My water's over here. Seriously, can't make this stuff up. But I do look forward to hearing about how Sarah Huckabee, whatever her name is, totally screws up the rebuttal. How do you rebut that, Jen Taub? I think we speculated before Biden started speaking that there was going to be we were going to see the contrast between Biden Democrats and the Republicans, who again tomorrow are starting a hearing on Hunter Biden. Okay. So between Biden's just empathy and all the other stuff we talked about and the heckling, it was just so stark that I don't think it's inarguable. And one of the brilliant things that Biden did, and I'm curious to know what you think about this, was he kind of hemmed them in with absolutely perfect sound bites, which Democrats don't always do.
Yeah, and even to me, the most sophisticated moment was when all of his skills came together in a moment. And so let me tell you what it was, because he was able to deal with heckling. So I'll give you this, you might remember this. So it's when he was saying, we're going to still need oil. Remember this and then they're like shouting at him. He's like, no, we're going to still need it for at least 5 years. And then they're still heckling him. And he said, they said all the billions of dollars they had in profit that they're going to invest more in oil because we need the flipping oil. That's what they said.
Yep.
But they didn't, they didn't do it. They did stock buybacks, and gave dividends. That's basically giving money to the shareholders instead of investing in supposedly all we need. So then he pivots from that and that's why we're taxing stock buybacks. All of that packaged together, he brought the dark brand in energy. He taught something right there about what tax policy is, that it's not just to get money so we can fund things we need, but it's also about where the values are. If you say we need oil, then invest in it. If you're giving the money back to shareholders, we're going to tax it more. And it was just, I watched that happen. It was right on the heels of him cornering them on how they're supposedly never going to cut Social Security. He cornered them on that. They fell right.
Yeah.
They fell right into his hands. To me, it was like, it was like the heavens opened and the angels sang, and I thought, like, really, this is so cool. And for me, there were several moments like that. But I love that. And so, but when you bring in the stuff they're going to do or what Sarah's going to say, it's noise. It's noise.
Yeah.
He slayed tonight.
Yeah, and Norm, again, I literally can't think of another speech. This was hands down the best speech he's ever given.
Yeah.
But again, that's not necessarily saying much, although the semi-fascist speech was quite good. But again, somebody who's not known for his oratory, saying it's his best speech doesn't necessarily mean that much. But this was as good as President Obama's best speech. I mean, seriously.
No, it's and not at all what we expected. But another part of this is on the same day that we get Michelle Goldberg's piece, but we also have all kinds of other Democrats saying he's too old, he's too feeble. He knocked this one out of the park. And it wasn't just that he has the ability to read from a teleprompter, although, with his stuttering issues, that's always something you have to be concerned about.
Yeah.
It was the ad-libbing. It was the way he reacted to the heckling.
Yep.
It was the ability to turn on a dime in terms of emotions, all of which was just brilliantly done. It was just a tour de force.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And Waj, like one of the best parts about it is that Biden did it in such a disarming kind of we're all in this together way. Like he wasn't obnoxious.
Yeah.
He wasn't rude, like unlike the entirety of the Republican caucus. He was basically just sort of saying, we should be all in this together. Why aren't we? Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a stroke of genius. Just it was sort of his amiable mystification that they're all like not on the same page. Like, how is that even possible?
There's a saying in Urdu, I'll translate, that that person is a sweet knife, that they'll stab you with sweetness. And I feel that's what he did, right? Because if you look at it, he took his folksy, come everyone, let's get together, bipartisanship, and he knows how extreme they are. And like jujitsu, he used it against them, right? So if you just even look at Social Security, for example, I think he got them because he knows. He not only got them, he says, "Oh, so unanimity? All right, we're not going to cut Social Security and Medicare. Oh, fantastic. Okay, you're all applauding that? Great." Got it on camera, milked it for about a good minute. Kevin McCarthy's sweating because he knows he's got Marjorie Taylor Greene and Boebert and all these other folks who will literally Massey,
the balloon.
Roy from Texas,
Don't forget the balloon.
Oh yeah, the balloon. Who are going to take this country with a debt ceiling crisis, specifically to cut Social Security and Medicare, right? Ban assault weapons, got it to trend, right? Mentioned people, hey, when I was there, I helped as a senator pass it. Gun violence went down for 10 years. They got nothing. Taxing corporations, they didn't applaud that. So I feel like what he did in the Biden-esque way, which again, I feel like if it was any other president, we want him to be more aggressive, but Biden doesn't have to. Biden kind of has that, I'm your folksy grandfather who's been in the Senate for 830 years. You know me. I work with people. And what he did and what he can get away with, and he did this about 3 times. He goes, smart move. I know it's not all of you, even though it's bullshit. It's all of them. I know this is not a party consensus, but there's enough of you. And then Marjorie Taylor Greene, who just couldn't contain, it's almost like it's like Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny uses the trap that Yosemite Sam sets for him against him. And that's exactly what he did. And Marjorie Taylor Greene was like Yosemite Sam, literally and figuratively. She came in and she just couldn't help it. And I feel like Biden, showed, and as what Norm was saying, at his age, and look, he's been in this game for a long time. That was political skill. And he was prepped and trained, and he knew that, like Pavlovian dogs, they couldn't help it. And she took the bait. You lie, you lie. He's like, okay, I'm lying. Great. No one's cutting Social Security. And these 2 particular programs, Social Security, Medicare, you're capping insulin, taxing the rich, broad popular policies, right? Like paid family leave, even the junk costs, right? I think it's one of those things that people might think is a throwaway, but I think it's going to be very popular for Americans. Like, why the F are we paying these fees to these airlines? And right now, these airlines aren't popular. So the fact that he made the airlines and the villains will unite all American travelers, especially a guy like me who had to fly during Southwest during the Thanksgiving chaos of last month, if you all remember. It's one of those situations that come election time, these are beautiful clips that literally every Democrat running for Senate and the House can use against Republicans. And the fact that he did it, it wasn't just on the fly, as Jen was saying, he improvised. He set the trap for them, and they took it. And he said it with a smile and with honey, which was just beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, again, Adam, Ali, this was, like he didn't specifically say anything about the Supreme Court, but he made it very clear where he stands on choice. And he just very quickly went down this list of issues that, none of us mentioned beforehand, but like ticket pricing and hotel taxes and hidden fees. And that is the kind of stuff that really matters. I mean, it matters to everybody, but particularly to working class and middle class Americans. And
I'm excited about that, honestly.
Right? Yeah, because that's the kind of stuff that we kind of leave out a lot of the times. So to have the president of the United States spend, it's not like he went on and on and on about it, but to spend a significant enough amount of time to make it clear that these are issues he thinks about, right? So what did you guys think about not just the fact that he did it, but the way he did it?
Well, I was going to say, I think that you make such an interesting point, because it seemed like he talked about all these things that affect all of us that are gathered here right now and in the chat room, and different generations that you would think either never affect a president or that he would never even know about. And I think it, to hear like, we're not going to have to pay resort fees when we're not visiting a resort anymore sounds awesome, but like, not somebody you would think he would know about, but he's also got a lot of younger people around him who are probably bringing up all sorts of stuff that affect them every single day. And those things matter. I mean, they not just matter, they add up. And when he's able to talk about not having to pay X, Y, or Z so that you can just be at the table with your family, I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Biden strikes me as maybe one of the only presidents we've had who actually knows how much a gallon of milk costs, right? Like, I think he really has his fingers on the pulse of this stuff. And I have kept you all long enough. But the last question of tonight is, Ellie, how are you feeling?
Well, I feel great. Thanks.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
You guys look amazing.
Just weeks away from having a baby. For anyone in the comments, no sickness.
Yeah. I mean,
How many weeks?
We have 7 weeks left.
Ah, wonderful.
Ooh, wow.
So excited.
Technically, if you're going by the size, we got 2, so we think we got a big baby coming.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my daughter was 8 pounds 15 ounces. So
yeah.
No,
my youngest was 9 pounds, so that's lovely.
Nice.
Yeah. So
C-section.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Good plan.
Yeah.
It wasn't a plan.
Good
Aaron,
plan.
I know everyone ended, but can I say this real quick? Because you mentioned something 30 minutes ago, which is something I don't think about. And you said, your name is so associated with Donald, and it's something that I should think about, and I don't, because I see you as your own person. But I can imagine the weight that has on you or a person when there is an individual who is an agent of so much cruelty and chaos. And I'm just glad you mentioned that to all of us, because you unfortunately are associated with this entity of cruelty. But I just want to mention that you are your own person, and I'm very grateful that you are speaking out and using your space to be the antidote to his cruelty, and you bring empathy. And it's just something also that I sometimes forget, that we are connected. And, even though we see him as this cartoon character who's a very real threat, I forget sometimes, oh, yes, he is related to Mary and has been a shadow in her life. So it's one of those things where, thank you for mentioning that. And thank you for doing what you do and restoring and redeeming the Trump name by fighting the good fight.
Waj, I think we need to call it Make Trump Great Again.
Let's not get carried away.
Yeah.
I think that's heavy lifting. I don't think that's possible, but thanks guys thank you for that. Because it's really hard. I have to confess, I sometimes forget myself, and then something comes up, and whether it's again the contrast between President Biden and Donald, or just the empathy shown on one side and the cruelty shown on the other, and it's like, oh, holy shit, I'm related to the person, closely related to the person who has set this country down this path we're on right now. And it's tough to take sometimes. But what helps me is you guys. I mean, literally, I should say this more probably, but I'm not entirely sure how I would be able to bear it if it weren't for my Nerd Avengers. The way you show up, the way you support me, I am so deeply, deeply, deeply grateful to all of you. So thank you for being here for me. I admire you all more than I could possibly say, and I'm grateful that you are in my life. So Dino Bardella, Kurt Bardella, Cliff Schechter, Brian Karem, Norm Ornstein, Jen Taub, Ali Sammarco, Parkhomenko, Wajahat Ali, my friends, thank you so much for everything you do and for being here tonight to watch this extraordinary State of the Union speech by President Joe Robinette Biden. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your evening, and I will hopefully see you all soon.
Great.
Thanks, Mary.
All right. I love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.